Radiant Black.
Holy hell. We're late. We're going through it this week. But
Very interesting week this week, but we're still here. We're still alive. Uh,
and I gotta make a podcast postponed video after
mhm.
this.
So let's just jump into it, Phil DeFranco style.
Oh God.
So this chapter or issue, was well, Kyle Higgins did promise something huge, and this is definitely huge. Holy shit! Let me pull this bad boy up real quick. I still have TBT up.
No, we're definitely getting into the. If you didn't follow any of the news at San Diego Comic Con, we're definitely getting into the preparations for the war right now,
Mm-hmm.
and our boy got his ass annihilated.
That jump, dude. I have to say, my memory with these villains are very, very, very like limber.
Dude.
I might have to go back and reread some of this stuff because some of these villains I don't even remember, to be honest. But wow, Nathan got fucked.
Dude.
Like he got jumped. This is like his own Sinister Six.
This is like that
Sinister Five.
it's that moment in the Spider-Man PS4 game where they all attack him on the raft.
Bro, they jumped the fuck out of him. Like holy shit. Like I'm actually really impressed. Like because it's so funny because it's just like why don't villains just do this? They just
Yeah.
jump the hero while he's at a fucking charity event trying to shoot basketballs in gravity.
Well, I mean, most heroes are like, I know I'm completely a target at every given second. Whereas here, he's like, I'm in this kind of for the money, kind of in it for the fame.
He was definitely overconfident, and this is what kind of showed. And it's so funny because they wanted him to sell out too. They were like, "Hey, all we need from you is the recharge. Let us do our thing, and you can get your cut."
I honestly thought he'd sell out
So,
too.
honestly, I thought he would. I thought he would.
Considering he's shilling for like NFTs and everything else.
Yeah, it's really funny too because it's just like the robot's telling him like, "Hey, you're dying. Hey, you're dying." All this extra shit like that.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I see a lot of people. I see well, not a lot of people, but I see like even like their own villain team was like hesitating like to kill him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They just want the radiant.
Yeah.
And so like this was a very interesting issue. Like it was that like we went from like slice of life kind of stuff to like full on into like story plot, and that was just, it very caught me off guard because like I wasn't expecting to get this sort of like jump into like serious shit for like for a while, and like
Mhm.
whoa.
Yeah, and it goes to show how great of a writer Kyle Higgins can be here, and usually is. Um, what I really don't like here is the hesitation from the villains. I love that they're being humanized, but I don't. If
Morality.
I don't love while we're setting up for a war arc here, and we knew before this issue dropped that we were setting up for a war arc, them to be that human.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair though, right? Like they're not like your hardcore like
Oh
criminals.
no,
They're just
this
people
isn't
trying
your
to.
Green Goblin or your Joker or
They're just random
whatever.
dudes who are
Yeah,
trying to get rich by making
they're
fighting
essentially the
from away.
Vulture from the MCU.
Yeah, they're not trying to really do much. They're not really bad, quote unquote, people. They're just
They were just dealt a shitty hand in a small
yeah.
town, and that's how this series is written. And you gotta take a step back and be
Mm-hmm.
like, well, these aren't meant to be your hardened criminals. Shift is technically the hardened criminal here,
Yeah.
even though he doesn't technically want to be. Question mark. He
Possession.
but he kind of seems to be the hardened, like, I don't care villain now. But at the same time, having read the four like mini chapters of the Shift series and the Image 30th anniversary stuff, you got to know him a little bit more in that. I'm not going to spoil that for you because you still have to read that.
Yeah.
You get to know him a little bit more intimately, and that kind of made me feel a little bit more for Shift here too.
Yeah.
And then having read, like, just to kind of tie this all in, like having read all of Radiant Red,
There's no
um,
need to read.
yeah, you do.
Well, blame comicsology for making it hard to find comics.
Yeah, that's a whole other video on this channel. And we talk about it in the interview with Melissa Flores too. Oh, but that was very interesting to see, like, even somebody like Radiant Red, who kind of got fucked over in that series and kind of became a victim of her circumstance, still cared enough to visit, independently, not as herself, in the hospital, our original protag, So there's moments of humanity sprinkled through this kind of fucked little town that we're stuck in Lockport. So I'm very curious to see, like, where we're going to go here. And now that we know we're getting a Radiant Pink series, we're getting another supermassive series, one shot down the road. We got the Dead Lucky out finally. Rogue, I managed to get a subscription to it through an incognito tab and prayer. But like, we got that. We got Rogue Sun entering the second arc, and we got Inferno Girl Red, like all
dropping this month, right?
I think Inferno Girl Red drops this month. I can't remember the exact date. One of them's October, one of them's this month. It's fucking hard to keep up with everything right now with life. But there's so much of a universe now in the Massiverse, and I love that. And each with their own little issues. Like in that interview, we had, like, Radiant Black is kind of segmented to this little tiny town, and he's basically the Spider-Man of this town, but you also have all these other Radiants that have their own unique sets of circumstances kind of floating around independently here. And I think that's where that war is going to really take hold, and that's why I love that we're getting, like, Pink having her own series.
Yeah, everyone's got to get their chance to shine.
Yeah, because they don't really get a chance to shine as much.
Because it is this series, of course.
Right?
So I'm happy we're getting, like, side series that make sense and don't really, like, do, like, oh, you want to understand this? Read this.
Right, because they're all independent enough that they don't really need to be read. But at the same time, if you want to dive deep into the lore and deep into this universe, you can read them and you can consume this content. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's manga, it's comics, it's fucking a TV show, it's episode 9,000 of fucking One Piece, it's still content to consume. You have all of these different supplemental content to actually digest and kind of pick parts out of. And the thing that I know you haven't read it, but I want to bring one little point up from Radiant Red that I think is going to be really, really important, and moving forward especially, because she had the opportunity to kill her husband. That set her up on this whole fucking path of, like, robbing banks and inadvertently technically killing our original protagonist.
Yep.
And she didn't choose to kill him. She fucked over the people that were pulling the strings in that entire. So I think, in every war you need a master manipulator. I think she's going to play that role very well. Whereas with Pinky, we got, in the brain. Oh God, I'm aged. Shion, stop licking feet.
Stop getting your kinks from your dad.
Shion, Jesus Christ. Stop. Yeah, cat attack. Check our Twitter. Our Instagram is dead as fuck. Right. Cat tongue is weird.
Anyways, back to the issue.
Pinky over there. I am not editing any of that out. That's saying it. Pinky being the one that will be like the transport. You have potentially a Radiant Green, as you keep teasing.
Yes,
we still have so much, especially after this issue, so much of a desire for our original protag to get back into the saddle.
Because technically, do we know who this Radiant Black is? Because I find this very interesting. Because, like, the Radiant is, like, understand that, like, when Nathan's dying because he got smashed to pieces, right? He was like, I'm afraid. Understandable but illogical. You are part of the existence. What does that mean? Does that mean that
Existence
He
is
can't.
kind of that plane that
He
they go
can't
into.
die. Is that like is radiant? Is it radiant people who hold the radiance for a certain amount of time? Because remember, like Nathan,
We've seen.
Nathan got his radiant like transferred because he
Mhm.
was about to die. So like, and the radiant teleported
I
Marcus. I think Marcus.
Marcus's rogue son.
Rogue son. Damn it.
I all
Marshall. There
Marshall.
it is. Marshall.
Yeah.
Marshall.
Too many names.
Yeah. Marshall. When he was going to kill himself with the train, the radiant teleported him out of the way and
Mhm.
sent him to existence. But it was like, and he was like, but not alone. And then another radiant black shows up. Could this be Nathan?
We have no idea here, and that's the thing. Like with existence, it seems like anybody that's been tied to it, because you see, Yellow is fucking old as dirt,
Mm-hmm.
and technically looks like a walking corpse.
Mm-hmm.
So
Works at Best Buy too. Yes.
he could be 26 years old and just work the night shift at Best Buy.
Yeah. Working third shift can do that to you.
Oh, I think I aged like 5 years working third shift. But no, like that. That's the point. Like, do we know like the actual terms of the contract with the black holes? No, we technically don't.
No, because anyone can grab them, and judging by.
Well, before we get copyrighted. Wasn't 30 seconds. I'm good.
Time he has to go to work, ladies and gentlemen. 11-minute Radiant Black video.
No, that's just my like dumbass get out of bed alarm. But I've been up since 11.
I was up since.
You were in bed when I got up to get breakfast.
Yes, sir.
But no, like that. That's the thing. Like we don't know the actual terms of the contract with these black holes, and that's the thing that I really want to dive into when we get to this war arc. Is like what is a contract with this? Because every power system has to have some sort of rules. Otherwise, it makes no sense. It makes it feel like an ass pull. And something I really hate about modern comics is like we don't really explain a whole lot of like the powers in them anymore. Like back in the day, like you knew this is a mutant. This is the rules of this mutation. And now it's like, oh, this one is now a technomancer vampire that can suck the life force from any living being.
About the new shit, safe space, and all that extra shit.
But
that comic never got released.
I think it got like shit on so hard that Marvel shelved it, but I don't know. But like that's the thing, like they don't really explain it. They just like make it a series of ass pulls.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want the power system in Radiant Black to be like a series of ass pulls. But right now, with no like rule set in these powers, I'm kind of like, okay, we know this one controls gravity, this one's teleportation, this one's mass you can manipulate mass, you can do all sorts of things, but there seems to be no real limit to them either.
Yeah, I'm curious to see who this is because it could not even be Marshall, Nathan.
Hell, it could be one of the villains there.
Yeah, but I'm just really curious because he says when you're not alone. I mean, obviously, with the foreshadowing was going up to this because, like, we saw Nathan and he was like, I honestly, I will say, I will be a little disappointed if he turns out to be another Radiant Black because I think, because I mean, technically, you could argue because we did picture like a civil war sort of thing going on between like Marshall and Nathan, who them deciding who could run the moniker better, whose philosophy or morality comes being superhero. Yeah. That would be interesting, fight to see who could be the true Radiant Black, holder of the Radiant and stuff like that. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
But
and that could be part of the war here. Like you could have one, join Shift and those assholes over there, and then you could have the other, on the side of good with all the other Radiants, and you can kind of have like that, like you said, Civil War is the best example here. But
I'm just really curious to see like where we can go from,
because we definitely have like the morals in place for a civil war too.
Nathan and Marshall clearly have different opinions on how Radiant Black should be ran.
Mm-hmm.
Marshall is honestly Marshall is a more like Iron Man approach, like government wide, not really government wide, but like
doing the moral good. Whereas
compared to like Captain America, do your own thing, do justice like your own way, don't be tied down to like Because like Marshall's into like the NFTs and like the branding and shit like that. And
Yeah, the Radiant Black Twitter is a gold mine, by the way.
I haven't followed
It's literally ran as if it's inside the comic. And then you have a Radiant Pink, a Radiant Red. I haven't seen Blue or Yellow have a Twitter pop up yet. You also have Dead Lucky acting on there, just as if it's from the like whoever's the social person for the Massiverse deserves a massive raise.
Doing a good job at it, huh?
Because they're always in fucking character. And then you have the authors over here, playing their own roles.
Oh, okay,
yeah. Kyle Higgins over here like ran into this guy, and it's just like a fucking. It looked like basically a cardboard cutout from C2E2, of Radiant Black. It's fucking hilarious. But no, like, there's not a whole lot to digest in this issue, which means we might be able to eke out Rogue Sun as well. But no, like the last thing I really want to bring up is now that we've seemingly got a new version of Radiant Black here, I got a question, like, as we get into the war, where the battle line's going to be. Because I don't think it's just going to be like good versus evil or moral versus, amoral. I think we're going to have some battle lines drawn in friendships. I think we're going to have a lot of battle lines drawn here in the, what is right, not just on that moral standpoint, but like as, kind of in a sense, like a branding way. How are we going to market this hero? Because we're very much in an era where, like, your brand is everything. And I love that they've kind of played into that here so well.
It's true.
Like, we have Radiant Black having a fucking YouTube channel, basically. Being in short films, being in charity events. But seemingly leaving the entire city undefended right now. Obviously, he got jumped at this charity event because they're like, well, we're broadcasting live from a charity event.
And that plan was actually really well done, too. I like how they all... I like how they all like work together to kick his ass, because that's just very interesting. He got jumped hella hard, and he brought it upon himself, like he was like,
he broadcasts his entire existence.
And that just goes to show you, being a superhero, you shouldn't really, broadcast, and that's the one thing, when I've talked about this before, but that's the one thing I always found interesting when the JLA Avengers comic book crossover happened. Like, one of the, like, when you saw Superman and Captain America go to each other's world, and they're like complaining about each world, how each world functions. I love how Captain America is just like, this isn't a hero society. This is like, everyone treats them as gods. Because it's true, in the universe, you have like fucking monuments for like all stupid type of superheroes, for the Teen Titans, Legion of Superheroes, the Justice League.
Yep.
You have like merch for them. Like people are so in love with superheroes. Like, just seeing the Avengers pop up, people were like, "Oh, you guys superheroes? Can we take a photo and shit like that?" Like, it's just like,
and then
you would think coming from another universe, like, they're treated as like gods instead of normal people. And it's the same thing here. Like, you can't really like put someone on that higher pedestal.
And that's why I kind of like God's Fall and fucking DC is like, you saw like that idolation kind of just crumble away, because you see all these fucking people we worshipped as gods kind of fall out of favor. It's kind of like how we're seeing with modern religion, like it's falling out of favor with a lot of people, and I fucking love that, because who needs 1,000 rules just to not be a dick, I'm sorry to get religious on you.
Radiant Black religion.
But like that's kind of how like Radiant Black is setting himself up to be, is like this fucking deity. Like, follow me on all these social medias, come watch me get my ass kicked.
Yeah, because I mean, he's doing it to give a better public opinion on the Radiants, because he's trying to be a superhero, because after Radiant Red doing their thing, but at the same time, it's kind of
there's got to be a limit.
I think he's too far in.
And once you get too far into that kind of game, you kind of lose focus on what it makes you a hero.
Mm-hmm. I think that's where probably like Nathan's kind of like, okay, well, we have to. I think his name is Nathan. I believe his name is Nathan.
Yeah,
Nathan or Marshall, either. I can't remember.
But like the thing is, like, we'll have one side be over here like, you need to stop marketing so hard. You need to stop being such a fucking idiot here. Who cares about Radiant Black NFTs? Realistically, we don't need JPEGs of a helmet. We need to focus on protecting the city. We need to focus on saving the civilians from this fucking dude that can phase in and out of reality. You can focus in on that, and public opinion will form itself. On the other side, you're going to have like, but my brand though.
It's very interesting too, because like now that we have this sort of situation, I'm curious to know like what, because like once Nathan wakes up and he finds, or Marshall, I believe, once Marshall wakes up and finds like, oh shit, because we don't know who this new Radiant is,
right?
So I'm assuming it's Nathan. I'd be doubt if it wasn't.
I'm curious like where we're at here in the story, and this is gonna
be huge conflict now, because we already saw Marshall was getting upset because the Radiant was talking to Nathan. But what if we find out that Marshall was given under the Radiant? You know what I mean? Like, and he was Radiant Black. Now there's two Radiant Blacks. So now you would think that Marshall would be happy about that, but clearly we've seen the jealousy there.
Exactly.
So and now we're gonna have a situation to where like, oh shit, are you trying to take what I wanted for a while? And now we're just sort of like trying to figure out what's going on from here.
Yeah, and just to wrap this video up, when we get to the next issue, that'll be like the prelude to the war. And then we have, I think, one issue again before it sets up. Okay. So like this next issue that comes out, I think the 29th, is going to be like that pivotal moment of story. And I'm so looking forward to that, because so much shit's got to happen to set up a war.
Yep.
Before, I could be wrong on the release dates of what's leading up right now. So correct me in the comments.
It depends. It depends on what exactly we can go from, because I feel like we're getting a slow
lead up to that.
Yeah, a slow lead up.
But we also have like a clear beginning battlegrounds already established now, because now we know that these villains mean business. They want the Radiance. They want all this shit. They want all these powers to kind of further their end goals here, and that's what's really going to be the dividing factor here for a lot of shit to go down in those issues. And there's something magical about the way that Kyle Higgins writes a war, having read all the Power Rangers, like the Shattered Grid shit. You guys are in for a treat if you haven't read that, and I'm super looking forward to that particular part of the story right now. But until then, peace.